Hello and welcome to the June edition of Bright Side of the Road. And right now the Irish Cultural Centre at Hammersmith is so full that we can't get in. We're here at the Duke of Cornwall round the corner on Fulham Palace Road. We like to think that we are on top of what's going on in the world of literature here, and the woman who keeps us on top is Anne Flaherty. Welcome. Anne, how are you doing?
Not too bad. My head is getting a bit swelled here now listening to you.
You've done a couple of things at the ICC in the last month, haven't you?
I have, actually. Well, one really. I interviewed comedian Owen O'Neill, who had written his first novel, Tom, Joad and Me, and that was a great night. He gave an amazing performance. He's a very funny guy, and he wrote the book because of his connection with the John Steinbeck novel. And it's kind of part memoir and then part fiction. Great night.
Yeah, no, he was on Portobello Radio actually the week before.
He was actually, yes, I listened to it.
Good.
It was inspiring.
We encourage you all to listen to Portobello Radio. Yeah. Now, of course, at Christmas, we lost Shane MacGowan, one of the great voices of the Irish in London, one of the great voices of Irish music. And it was the definitive biography, Furious Devotion, by Richard Balls, and he has updated it a little bit, hasn't he?
Yes. Well, he was due to have the paperback issued anyway, which is being launched at the Irish Centre, at the Irish Cultural Centre on July the 19th. And Richard will also be talking to me about the book. Now, a couple of years ago, when the original book, when the hardback came out, we did an interview with Richard, which is still available actually on the website. And obviously, because of the passing of Shane, he added a couple of extra chapters to the paperback version. Mainly, I suppose, his final days and coverage then of the amazing funeral that we saw in Tipperary.
Yeah, the funeral is still in people's minds.
Yes,
6 months later. Just remind us how Richard came to write the biography in the first place.
Yes. Well, Richard was a journalist, a news journalist for years, but he also specialises in music. And he had written a book about Ian Dury, and he'd also written a book about Stiff Records. And it was through Paul Ronan, who was a very close friend of Shane MacGowan's, that he was introduced to Shane. And he himself decided that even though there had been an awful lot written about Shane and documentaries and television programmes, he still felt that he could write something that added to, the knowledge of the man. And it was through Paul then, his connection with Shane, that he managed to get Shane's trust and established a rapport with him, which allowed him, over a period of a couple of years, to visit him and stay with him in Dublin and to, I suppose, coax out stories that hadn't been heard before. And one of the other things that Richard did, which is a credit to him as a journalist, is that he wanted to write a lot of the inaccuracies, to put right a lot of the inaccuracies that had been written about Shane. And he also wanted to seek out people who maybe hadn't been interviewed before, including ex-girlfriends and landladies. And,
amazing.
People who knew a different side of him.
There must be a couple of good stories from the landladies, I would have thought, in the book.
I think the ex-girlfriends are actually more interesting.
He lived in the Barbican with his daddy and mammy.
Yes.
And Therese, the mammy, went back to Tunbridge Wells because they were building all day.
Right.
And then he took a flat off Oxford Street. And he tended to find flats that were very close to music venues, so he stumbled out. They used to, when they called him for gigs, they'd not call at the window and he'd throw down the keys, And he was it always tended to be a bit late. It was always missing ferries and stuff like that.
That's true.
But that early life wasn't easy.
No.
But what surprised me in the book was that he was ambitious, that he was going to get there. by hook or by crook. That he really had a great sense of the journey he wanted to go on,
Yes. Well, one of the things that was very interesting, I thought, in Richard's book was that he went back and spoke to his old school teacher. And one of his teachers, Tom Simpson, who's now dead, he had actually kept essays that he wrote when he was 8. So it was very obvious that he was very talented from a very, very young age.
Yeah.
And then, as you say, when they moved from Tunbridge Wells to the Barbican, things didn't go very well.
No.
And he fell into sort of drugs and was expelled from Westminster and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
But the thing that captured his imagination, of course, was the music scene.
Yeah.
And Richard, charts that sort of growing discovery of music as kind of part of his identity, and creating his own identity
because
as second generation Irish.
He at one point, when he was so out of it, he went to a psychiatric hospital. And after a few weeks, he was doing okay. He was the only one he wasn't put on heavy drugs because the doctor liked him. And his parents said, they said, you can go home. He said, I'd like to stay a few more weeks. And then he came out, and then he fell in love with punk. He said, so here's me leaving the lunatic asylum and falling in love with these lunatics, musicians, but punk saved him. I mean,
punk saved him. I think in punk he found his tribe,
Yeah.
and also it gave him a vehicle for expressing all the pent up anger that he had, and it says in the book that it was really when he went to see the Sex Pistols in 1976, and he saw John Lydon, and he thought, okay, this is me. I found my I know what I want to do now, and it really was very soon afterwards that he
and also that
formed the band.
He got in the front of all the papers because some wild girl bit his ear off.
Yes.
That was his first claim to fame, which he wasn't totally happy with. But he got through that punk scene, and then he formed, ultimately after the Nips, he formed the Pogues, and he designed their clothes. This is the ambition. He said, we're going to wear black suits like Irishmen and a white shirt. We're going totally against everything else that was going on in the UK British music scene.
They called them in London the paddy suits.
Paddy suits, yeah.
No, he was pretty focused about when he was interested in something.
Very. And he home in Nina and Tipperary from being a kid, he did carry the dual passports in his head, not just, he went back as much as possible, and he brought girlfriends over to Nina who couldn't believe how, dilapidated to some degree compared, no toilet and all the rest of it. Right. But he never lost that. Very proud. Very, very proud. And got into trouble. He was always getting into fights because of his Irishness at a time when London was going through anti-IRA and lots of vibes. But he always...
Well, he wasn't shy about, expressing his opinions. But in fact, you mentioned about his connection with Tipperary, which of course is, so crucial to him. And the reason that the book is called A Furious Devotion is because that is a line in the song Mother McCree that he wrote, and that's where he gets that from, my devotion to the old land.
Yes.
Of course, when he took the Pogues back to Ireland at first, they weren't received that well because...
Well, they were and they weren't. There was a few arseholes, as there always is. Noel Hill said it was a disgrace on the Irish. Ronnie Drew loved them. Lots of people loved them, so they had... And Shane took it easy. Gay Byrne tried to... give him a hard time on the late show. Liam, okay, but Liam later on said I was wrong. But they won them over in the end. But it was a bit of a shock for Ireland at the time. I remember seeing them in Ireland at that time when they first came, and they were extraordinary. So they did have a lot of base, but there was some purists who just said, You're making a show of yourselves, singing all these paddy drunken songs, and Shane said, "Yeah, that's what we used to do. We used to get drunk and sing these songs in London."
The other irony of that, of course, is that traditional Irish music was kept alive in London at the turn of the 19th and 20th centuries.
Absolutely,
because it was suppressed.
Well, it was
back home.
After the war, 50s. I think even Connemara signs up no Irish music here. No, it's like here saying no blacks, no dogs, no Irish, no Irish music. It was just extraordinary. So when you had the revival, particularly with Dubliners, and then later on we all know Planksy and Moving Hearts, and Irish music became universal again and proud of itself. But Shane in his way contributed to that chapter possibly more than anybody in a sense.
Well, it was a reinterpretation, you see. It was a reinterpretation because for a lot of young people, those old songs that their parents would have sung, they were obviously going to reject that. But the Pogues came along and they gave it a kind of a raw energy, and they reinterpreted it so that, they had young people could identify with that. And not just young people in London, but also in America.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the track we're going to play, I think it's Rainy Night in Soho, is off their Rum, Sodomy and the Lash, which is produced by Elvis Costello. And somewhere along the line, when they were traveling, they were touring an awful lot, and they were just about to take America apart. But they heard, wow, it's in the charts. It was the first song of a 4 EP that Elvis Costello released. And Rainy Night in Soho just, people cried when they heard it. Like Shane MacGowan was now part of the psyche of not only Irish but British people, and Rainy Night in Soho.
You're talking to Richard Balls, who wrote Furious Devotion at the ICC on July the 19th.
That's right.
I forgot to ask, is the book a hit or a miss?
Oh, definite hit. Richard tried to get under the skin of him. He describes him as a very shy and complex man with a great humanitarian side and a fantastic listener, and he would sit and talk to anybody.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of working with him a few times, and he is very gentle and very focused on you if he's talking to you, But Siobhan, the sister, kind of said that this book is for her the definitive book on Shane, the brother she had, and the daddy says the same, so that says a lot.
Great. So if you want to know more, get down to the ICC on July the 19th when Anne Flaherty will be on stage.
Still tickets, guys. Book your tickets. There's still tickets, and you can buy the book on the night.
Wow, fantastic. So possibly signed even.
Yeah, signed copies.